Hi everyone, welcome back on this channel. So I am going to read something from my book. So this book has been published in 2019. This is available through KDP. The link is down below if you want to purchase and support my work. And I want to read to you about self-acceptance because in today's topic, it's learning about who you are in the grand scheme, because we actually do not know who we are. Self-acceptance is a process, as I read in this book. When you have been rejected and criticized as a young girl, self-acceptance doesn't come easily. Since I was a child, I always had a longing to be accepted and be loved. I never did like myself, that I've often copied another woman's behavior or people's behavior. I was jealous of what others possess. I've tried to emulate others by improving myself and change the way I look. So if you know exactly what I'm talking about, you can relate. Despite all of the efforts of changing the color of your hair, covering up your flaws by putting makeup on, I still felt insecure. I've soon discovered that self-acceptance is being comfortable with your own skin. So, self-acceptance, as I said in this book, is not just about changing your external behavior. It's not about beautifying yourself, although those things matter. However, self-acceptance is internal. It's what you feel on the inside. It takes a lot of self-assessment, self-awareness, discovering who you really are, the way that God created you, your unique talents and skills, your quirkiness, your being weird, being the person probably that is the oddball in your family. However, when you have been in this dynamics of a family, they want to condition you to act like them, talk like them, dress like them. Eventually, you're going to lose sight of your own self. It's important sometimes that when you can afford to do so, which I had the privilege to do so, that I had to live on my own, took care of myself. I really got to know myself the day when I lived by myself, went to college on my own, and put myself to college and worked part-time. Went to school part-time and went to get a job in the morning. And that's when I discover who I am, what I was like, what kinds of things I like, what kinds of things I tolerate and do not tolerate. Because self-acceptance, as I said, it's about contemplation. It is about you learning your strengths, your weaknesses, your talents and your skills. Because when you are in the dynamics of family, when they want you to have this one size fits all, you're eventually going to follow their lead. You're just gonna do what they want you to do, and it's actually gonna rob you of what your potential and how God put you here for a purpose. So self-acceptance is, again, it takes a lot of trial and error. It takes about ways that you can get to know yourself. Journaling, as I always say on my channel, as I said, that when you journal a lot, it's a reflection of who you are. It's about assessing about, okay, what do I like to do? What are the things that makes me passionate? What are the things that I gravitate naturally towards? What are the things that I cannot stand? The things that makes me want to just slap somebody's face, for the lack of better words. And what are the things that I really want to do in this life? So for me, accidentally, I have found out that communication is one of the things that I've always loved to do. As a young girl, I always thought that I want to be a newscaster, a journalist, because I remembered when I used to grab a periodical table or a newspaper, and I would just put that on the table, and I would be in front of the mirror, and I would just pretend like I was newscasting and sharing the news in front of the mirror. And until to this day, that's still that God had pushes me to create a YouTube channel. Even though I'm not a newscaster or I'm not a journalist per se, but somehow I still found the YouTube in a means of being in kind of journalism, although this is about sharing my experiences, about coaching people. So I have found out that when you really know who you are, you become more at peace with yourself, you become happier with yourself, and you have this kind of assurance that I am at the right place at the right time. When you have not found out what you really are good at and what you're made for to do in this world, this is why a majority of people, as I said, they have this anxious thoughts. They don't know what they're here for. They're not really happy. They're not content, and they're miserable people. People that are downcasted sometimes because they have not found out what they're made of or what they're made for. And self-acceptance, as I said, is just not about changing the color of your skin, hair. I keep saying skin, your hair, or changing or fixing your teeth or fixing your makeup or your Botox. It's about dealing with your pain, traumas, dealing with your trigger warnings, dealing with people that are difficult in your life. Anxiety actually sometimes create all of this tension in your life, and you think that it's actually who you are, when in fact it is your false belief system. It is about what people have contributed in your life. This is why sometimes you try so hard to accept yourself. So for instance, I always thought that I am an outgoing person. I like to socialize. However, I also realized that when I socialize too much, if I always am in the crowded place, I get so depleted of my energy. I get tired. It takes me maybe days to recover from my energy. The last time that I went on vacation with my family to Disneyland, I was so exhausted that at least by the time we come home to our place, I slept for at least 4 hours straight. That's how tired I was. Because as a person like me, I didn't know that introverted people tend to become so depleted of energy. They're tired. Not to say that they are not outgoing or they're not friendly. They are. However, we are not good with too noise, too crowd. That is not who we are. So part of self-acceptance and knowledge is that knowing who you are, the kinds of things that really resonate with you. And if it doesn't resonate with you, it's quite okay. The problem with our society is that they think that there must be something wrong with you if you don't act like them, if you don't talk like them, if you don't quite fit into the mold where society has allowed us or actually told us to become. And that is a problem, because God never wanted us to be like everybody else. He wants us to be different and to be who you are, that God created you. This is the reason why most of us are not aware of what we like and we don't like. We allow our family, we allow society to dictate of who we can be in this world. As I told you, just because your family are all lawyers and bunch of doctors and nurses, it doesn't mean that you have to be one of them. It doesn't mean that if your family says you must do this because I say so, because it's either their way or the highway. But if it does not sit well with you, if you're not happy about it, if it doesn't make you happy, you're not passionate about it, if it makes you kind of question, well, I don't really feel good doing that, so why should you do it? Because as I said, you owe this much to yourself. You don't owe this to your family, because eventually when you're gonna grow old, you're gonna regret living for people's dreams, other people's desire and dreams and goals, instead of living your own dreams and goals. And you're gonna regret it, and regret is costly. You don't wanna live a life when you are almost dead on your deathbed saying, I wish I could have, would have, should have done the things that I wanna do with my life. So that's why when I wrote this book, I told myself that I need to write this book to tell the world about my things that I have gone over, the traumas that I have been able to endure, because life is not that easy for the rest of us. Like myself, I've been through a lot. It's not that I need to prove myself that I'm somebody special. That's why I wrote this book. I wrote this book to inspire people, to give them motivated, and says, although life is going to throw you a lot of curveballs, life is going to be unfair to you, there's going to be a lot of hardships, people are going to target you and traumatize you. At the end of the day, it's actually what you do afterwards. It's what you do after the trauma, what you do after the abuse. What do you do after life knocks you down is to dust off your feet and start all over again. I know you have heard this time and time again, that you should not quit, you shouldn't give up on yourself. It is cliche, it is inundated for gurus out there, motivational speaker. I'm pretty sure you have heard it from someone, but it's worth my time to remind you, because people, as I said, are sheep. We have to be reminded. We have to be constantly reminded that yes, life is hard. It's not perfect. I always tell my son, I wish I can protect you from the harms life and the difficulties of life, but that's just not reality. It's not really thing that we wake up one day and I hope that everybody's just going to be happy all the time, everybody's going to be in the same good mood, and people are not going to have all these issues that they're dealing with. This is why part of healing journey is about allowing yourself to grieve in the process. That's when you accept yourself for allowing yourself to say, I have failed today and I have messed up today, and then you're gonna start all over again. Some people, they don't accept themselves because they are perfectionists. As I said, one of the reasons why people are afraid of accepting themselves, because they think they need to be perfect all the time. If only I am perfect, if I don't make mistakes. That is a bunch of baloney, because there's no one on this earth that is perfect. You are gonna fall, you're flawed, you are fallible because you're a human being. That's just reality. So when you accept yourself, I used to grow up in a family where perfectionist people, they usually don't accept themselves because they have a high standard that somehow if they don't achieve that standard, something might be wrong with me. People who usually are perfectionists, they think that everybody should act and think and do things the way that they are. And it's so hard to break that cycle when you come from that kind of family dynamics where they expect you to be always on top of the game, always be in competition, and if you don't achieve that, something must be wrong with you. I am a person who usually are down to earth. Usually I don't like a lot of this, you know, some people maybe like the special treatment or this because I'm special. I've learned that myself, if you're good with me, I'm good with you. But if the moment that I have perceived that you've been lying to me, manipulated me, and gaslighted me time and time again, I am gonna have a problem with you, and that's when boundaries come. So another part of self-acceptance is knowing what acceptable behavior and what's not. When you don't know who you are, you just allow people to trample all over you, and you become a doormat. You become so passive aggressive. You're just gonna allow people to disrespect you if you don't know who you are, because you have no backbone. You don't know what you're about. You don't know what's acceptable behavior and what's not acceptable behavior. Because the part for me, when I did not know who I was very naive, I was gullible, I was very nice. Yes, 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 okay. When they told me just sit down there, be a good little girl, don't speak, don't say much, I just followed. You know, I was this goody two shoes. I followed orders all the time. When my mom said, you can't go out with your friends, okay, mommy. You can't do this, okay, mommy. You can go biking, okay, mommy. I was that little girl. However, when it comes to shove, when I was bullied in school, when I came in this country, that's when I realized that when you are not going to stand up for yourself, people are going to walk all over you. They don't care because they can smell you from afar like a shark. There's a fresh blood. She's very weak. I can sense that person is very weak. She's very vulnerable. So bullies usually attack you because they can perceive that you are such a little weakling. But if you don't know how to stand up for yourself, like bullies, that we have bullies in our family, there are narcissistic people in our family, as I always talk on my channel. There are toxic people in our family that we have to have assertiveness. We need to learn boundaries. But narcissistic people, unfortunately, they don't know what boundaries are. They don't know. That's why you have to keep reminding them, this is not acceptable, this is acceptable. This is what I tolerate, and this is not what I tolerate. If you don't show them that, if you don't have this idea in your head, then they're just gonna think that you're just a person, an easy target. So this is why part of self-acceptance and self-discovery is knowing what you're about, telling people about it, and make a clear decision that this is who I am. You cannot just do things in my place or do things just because you feel like it. There are standards, there are rules. The same thing with our lives. We must have rules that we have to implement so that people know how to deal with you. Because majority of people think they can just do whatever they want without ramification, without consequences of their bad behavior. And that is why I wrote in this book that when we accept ourselves for who we really are, we don't need people's validation anymore. Not to say that we shouldn't learn from people, not to say that we shouldn't learn from our own mistakes. Of course, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. However, we are not so caught up in like, does she like me? Does he like me? How's my hair today? Do I look good for this person? How's my outfit today? It's always about looking outside instead of looking inside. The idea is that instead of saying, I'm gonna fix my hair because I want people to think that I'm such a wonderful person since sliced bread, I am going to have this outfit on because I am the greatest and the latest invention since Sputnik. Instead of saying that, you could probably look to yourself and say, I'm doing this because for myself, I want to feel confident. I want to be able to portray to the world that no matter what's going on in my life, I am not going to wear my burdens on my sleeve. I'm not gonna carry around this problem everywhere I go. You need to be that living testament if you are a living child of God, because as we said, we represent heaven. When you are a child of God, God said you are bold like a lion, wise as a serpent, and harmless like a dove. This is the reason why God has given us not the spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. But if you cannot represent God, so how else are you going to live in this life? You're going to live like the rest of them, victimhood mindset, woe is me, I am such a pity party, and nobody wants to be around with that kind of a person, because that kind of environment is toxic. You're never gonna grow, and that is why sometimes it's important that to know yourself is to accept yourself wholeheartedly, flaws and all, no matter what happened in your life. And that is why when the majority of us who have not been healed in our wounds, we usually don't accept ourselves because of guilt, because of shame. And that is something that you need to work on. I used to walk in guilt. I used to walk in shame. A shameful person is going to put her head down, allow people to just abuse her, and people pleasing. Okay, if you have not healed yet, these are the signs. You walk in guilt and shame, and you do things for the sake of other person so that you make them happy instead of making yourself happy. You also are people pleasing. People pleasing sometimes is exhausting. You always do things for everybody, you're always serving everybody, and then you actually put yourself in the back burner, and then you wonder why you're so miserable. You are full of anger. I have learned this the hard way. Not to say that you should always put yourself on the pedestal in a narcissistic way. That's not what I'm talking about. If you need to help people, serve your family, you like to cook for your family, so be it. But sometimes though, when you're the only one who keeps going out and about and doing for everybody, like your family, taking care of the meals, throwing the garbage, scrubbing the toilet, doing all this work, and nobody really see that and appreciate that, there are times that you just have to pull the plug and says, you know what, I am just gonna let this ship sink down once in a while, okay? Because sometimes, as I said, as a woman, we give too much of our energy, our time to our husband, that some husbands are prick and they don't appreciate, or we give too much attention to our kids, and sometimes we just have to let them fall and learn on their own, okay? There are times that as a woman, we really have to say, I need my break. I need to just do things that makes me happy, that I can get back what makes me energetic. Because as I said, how can you be a woman of substance if you keep pouring things to people and nobody's pouring to you? You keep on giving and giving and filling somebody else's cup, and no one is pouring the cup to you. Who's taking care of you? Who? Nobody, right? Did anybody check up on you today? Nobody, right? Why is that? Why is it that women usually, we love to check up on everybody? Our children, our spouse, maybe our mom, our sisters, our brothers. If you're the person who usually are consensuous, who is always caring about what people are up to, but when was the last time when people truly ask you, how are you doing? What have you? I don't even know where I left off because my phone decided to stay kaput. And so, I want to continue in the book. So this was page 91 of the Relentless book, The Love of God. We make a purchase even though we could barely afford it. I had this mindset many years ago that left me exhausted. Jesus said, take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life. Luke 21:34. Life is more than just a possession, more than food, and more than wealth. Each one of us is unique and different in so many ways. God wants diversity and not conformity. We are told not to think like the rest of the world by constantly putting our concern solely on the earthly things that will eventually fade away. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Romans 12:2. The world compares, belittles, criticizes, leaves us feeling less of ourselves by trying to keep up with everyone around us. We consume our time waiting to get plenty of likes on social media. Do you ever catch yourself wishing your life to be someone else other than yourself? It's a rat race that we all are trying to compete against each other. We try to please men rather than please God. We must learn to accept ourselves the way God created us. Comparison prevents us from becoming who we are authentically because we waste our time making ourselves being someone that we're not. We must be intentional to avoid comparing ourselves from anyone else because you will never find anyone like you. We can each learn from others and get inspired by others, but refrain from comparing yourself, for it is a battle you'll never win. Once you truly accept yourself, then you fully understand what you're made of. We have been commanded to love others as you love yourself. Loving ourselves is equivalently as important as loving others. We cannot give something if we have nothing to give out of ourselves. The moment we've learned to accept and love ourselves is the moment we can love others wholeheartedly. You'll no longer crave for people's validation. There are two reasons why we are created here on earth. First is to give glory to God and to love Him above all else. Secondly, to love others and to be at service to others and of yourself. Beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another, even our enemies that we cannot stand. And that is all that I would like for you to think about on this episode of accepting yourself. It's about knowing thy oneself. That is the surest way of you to really not allowing the world to contaminate and pollute your authentic self. We must not allow society to dictate of who you are and who you could be. I think people, if they could really do the job of knowing who they are, this would be a better world to live, wouldn't you think? But the problem is we have been conditioned to be just like everyone else. It's boring to be like everybody else, wouldn't you think? I mean, you copy some certain styles and then you look alike. You come from the magazine, and it all has different shapes and forms, different beauties. And that is why sometimes when you need some kind of inspiration, you probably need to go out in nature. Maybe you need to go on vacation. Maybe you need to look for some inspiration from a magazine that will inspire you to think differently, because people will always say, well, just look at the TikTok, the trends that is going on. Everybody just want to look the same and do things the same way. And it's boring. I think it's time for us to just shake things a little bit and be different once and for all, instead of always copying everybody's the same conformity. And that is why my challenge for you, if you found out who you are, you accept yourself who you are, no matter what people say, it doesn't really matter. Okay? As I always say on my channel, be bold, be brave, but courageous, and keep your faith. And if you have not done so, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe on my channel. Until next time, I will see you on my next video.